Hey everyone! Welcome back to Optimist Ukshu, where we turn history into a story you'll never forget. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating chapters, the period of transition. This was the time when the old world started changing, paving the way for the modern age. From trade to technology, from kings to commoners, everything was shifting. So get ready to explore how this era became the bridge between the medieval and the modern. Let's time travel together. Let's get into it. A period of transition. History is the study of changing patterns in society. To characterize these changes, historians have divided history into three periods: ancient, medieval, and modern. These broad divisions mark how society, economy, culture, and politics of one period differed from the preceding and the succeeding periods. Features of the modern age: industrialization, urbanization, development of urban centers, namely cities, scientific progress, growth of democratic institutions, rationalism, examining everything in the light of reason, humanism, the human being and not God is the center of the world. It must be remembered that the change from medieval to modern did not happen overnight. It was a gradual process and took place over a period of time. Also, the modern period did not begin at the same time in all parts of the world. The 18th century is generally taken as the starting point of the modern period in India. This was the time when the British became the masters of India and brought about many changes in different eldes of life. On the other hand, the modern period in Europe began from the 16th century. Sources. There is an abundance of source materials for the modern period in India. These can be divided into two groups: primary sources and secondary sources. Primary sources. These include original documents such as letters, government reports, newsreels, newspapers, speeches, audio recordings, video recordings, photographs, sculptures and paintings, and archaeological remains such as monuments and artifacts. Many of these primary sources have been preserved in archives and museums. Secondary sources. Historians study primary sources and interpret them. These interpretations constitute secondary sources. These are available as reports, reviews, articles, and books by historians. 9. Modern Europe. The modern period is characterized by greater interaction among the countries of the world. India was influenced by the developments in other parts of the world. Therefore, before we study the history of modern India, it is important to know about the significant events and changes that took place in other parts of the world during this time. Renaissance. The word Renaissance literally means rebirth. It was a cultural movement that spanned roughly the 14th and 17th centuries. The movement began in Italy and spread to the rest of Europe. It aimed to revive classical glory, learning, and culture of ancient Greece and Rome. Art, architecture, literature, philosophy, and science of this period were influenced by the Renaissance. The Renaissance thinkers were rationalists. They asked people not to blindly accept whatever the church told them. They questioned beliefs founded on blind faith and superstition. People were asked to judge and accept things in the light of reason. People began to observe, experiment, and use their reasoning to arrive at conclusions. Humans became the center of study during the Renaissance. Secular themes and the depiction of the human form became the focus of paintings and sculptures. The image above displays a digital illustration of 6 notable Gugers from the Renaissance period. Included are Michelangelo Buonarroti, Nicholas Copernicus, William Shakespeare, Isaac Newton, Hero/Hercules Maxwell, and Leonardo da Vinci. These Renaissance people are the sculptors, writers, painters, and scientists that represented the true spirit of the Renaissance. Reformation. The Reformation was an important movement in the history of Europe. The new spirit of inquiry opposed the practices of the Roman Catholic Church. The 16th century movement questioned the special position enjoyed by the Roman Catholic Church in the Christian world. Some people spoke out against the church because they believed that it had become too rich, powerful, and corrupt. These people were called the Protestants. The Reformation attacked the practice of blind faith. The reformers asked people not to blindly accept whatever the church told them. They urged people to read the Bible and follow its teachings. The reformers regarded the Bible, and not the Pope, as the supreme authority. The image depicts a painting of a formal scene within an architectural backdrop, a testament to the opulence of the era where popes held grand courts and often indulged in corrupt practices. Protests against the corrupt practices of the church officials was led by Martin Luther, a monk in Germany. In Switzerland, Ulrich Zwingli and John Calvin popularized the Protestant movement. In England, the movement was led by Henry VIII. In response to the Protestant Reformation, a movement began within the Roman Catholic Church to restore the reputation and credibility of the Church. This is known as the Catholic Reformation. However, the division between Protestants and Catholics and their religious disputes continued well into the 17th century. Tired of such disputes, some people left Europe and sought religious freedom in the new world of the Americas. Voyages of discovery. During the early 15th century, the most important trade route between Europe and Asia was an overland route that passed through Western Asia. Trade with Asia was very portable and extremely important for the Europeans. Among other things, they needed Asian spices to preserve meats. Textiles from Asia were also a popular item of trade. After Constantinople, now Istanbul, was conquered by the Ottoman Turks, the overland route was no longer available for trade. The Turks blocked the trade routes to Asia. A new route to Asia thus had to be discovered, and this led to a race among European countries to new sea routes. Many European rulers financed expeditions to discover new trade routes to the east. The tremendous growth in geographical knowledge and the invention of new scientific instruments gave a fillip to exploration. Improved maps and instruments such as the quadrant, the astrolabe, the mariner's compass, and adjustable sails made sailing at sea safer. The invention of the gun and gunpowder helped safeguard ships from attacks by sea pirates. Thus, new sea routes and new lands were discovered by sailors and explorers. Pictured are some explorers whose voyages had impacts on trade routes during the 15th century. In 1488, Bartholomew Diaz reached the southernmost tip of Africa and named it the Cape of Good Hope. Vasco da Gama followed the same route and reached India in 1498. Christopher Columbus also set out to discover a sea route to Asia, but discovered the Americas instead. Later, Amerigo Vespucci also reached the Americas. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese sailor, was the first to sail around the world. Behind it, the Industrial Revolution. An ever-increasing volume of trade meant that more goods had to be produced in a shorter time to meet the demands of the market. The domestic system of production, under which the artisan collected raw materials from the merchant, made goods at home using his bare hands or, at best, some simple tools, and then supplied the finished goods to the merchant, could not meet the growing demands of the market. A strong need was therefore felt for a new system of production. The factory system of production developed in the 18th century. Rich merchants set up factories, installed newly invented machines, bought raw materials from the market, and employed workers on wages to produce goods on machines. This development is known as the Industrial Revolution. It is called a revolution because it marked a radical change from the domestic system of production. The image above illustrates the factory system of production, a key aspect of the Industrial Revolution. Mechanization of labor was the chief feature of the Industrial Revolution. Why England? The Industrial Revolution began in England in the middle of the 18th century. England at this time was in an advantageous position to start and sustain an industrial revolution. Created by TurboLearn AI, page 6, England had an abundant supply of natural resources, especially coal and iron, needed for industrialization. It had a stable government that encouraged trade and commerce. British traders and merchants were given the liberty to trade as they liked. With the abolition of serfdom in the 18th century, a large number of people became free. They moved to the cities looking for work. Thus, cheap labor was easily available. The British government, with its strong navy, embarked on a policy of geographical expansion. This led to rapid colonization, which enabled England to get cheap raw materials from the countries it colonized. These colonies also served as markets where the British could dump their niched products for sale. An atmosphere of scientific inquiry and transport system in the form of an improved canals and roads helped England become the rest industrialized nation. Major inventions. The textile industry was the rest to be mechanized. James Hargreaves' spinning jenny, Richard Arkwright's water frame, Samuel Crompton's spinning mule, Edmund Cartwright's power loom, John Kay's Ying shuttle, and many other inventions increased the production of cloth. Lancashire and Yorkshire emerged as the two main centers of the textile industry. Here is an image of Watt's steam engine on display at a technical institute. The steam engine allowed railroads to develop. The improved steam engine by James Watt replaced water and horsepower in many industries. George Stephenson's steam-powered locomotive helped in the transport of raw materials from one place to another. Inventions such as the seed drill and horse hoe improved agricultural productivity. Better coal mining techniques developed. In the course of time, all major industries were affected by the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution gradually spread across Europe and to the United States, Japan, and many other countries of the world. Impact. The Industrial Revolution led to sweeping changes in Europe and elsewhere. Rise of capitalism. Industrialization led to the decline of feudalism in Europe. A new system arose in its place, capitalism, a system in which the means of production were privately owned and operated for profits. New social classes. Capitalism gave birth to two new social classes. One was that of the factory owners who employed workers and paid them wages. The main aim of the factory owners was to make profits. They controlled the money and hence were called the capitalists. They were very prosperous and led a life of luxury. The other class was the workers who worked in factories and received wages for their labor. They were an exploited lot and lived in great hardship. Growth of imperialism. With the growth of the factories, the industrialized countries of Europe were faced with two crucial concerns. One was the need for cheap raw materials to manufacture goods, and the other was to find in markets for the finished goods. Political domination of the less developed countries solved these two problems. The establishment of colonies in Asia, Africa, and the Americas by European countries helped to sustain the Industrial Revolution. Manchester developed into an international center of the textile industry. It was therefore called the cotton polis of the world. Imperialism. Imperialism is the policy of extending political and economic control over a weak country by a powerful one. This phenomenon gained strength in the 19th century, largely due to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution led to a tremendous increase in the production of goods. The European countries needed markets for the manufactured goods, new sources of cheap raw materials to manufacture more goods, and areas in which they could invest their surplus capital. This led them to acquire colonies in Asia and Africa, continents rich in natural resources but militarily weak. The race to acquire colonies peaked during the latter half of the 19th century. By the beginning of the 20th century, almost the whole of the non-industrialized world had come under the control of a few industrialized countries. Britain, France, Belgium, and Spain were the main colonial powers. The colonialists exploited the colonies economically. The local industries of the colonized countries were practically destroyed. For example, the influx of cheap machine-made goods destroyed the indigenous textile industry of India. The colonies were treated as mere suppliers of raw materials. No effort was made to industrialize the colonies. In Burma, now Myanmar, the British exploited her natural resources and granted themselves the exclusive right to sell the manufactured products that Burma needed. Impact of the Industrial Revolution on India. India turned into an importer of factory-made, niched goods and an exporter of raw materials. As factory-made goods were cheaper than handmade goods, Indian artisans could not face the competition. As a result, the traditional textile industry was ruined. With the decline of the textile industry, there was large-scale urbanization. The main centers of the textile industry, such as Murshidabad, Dhaka, now Dhaka, Surat, Lucknow, and Machilipatnam, among others, became deserted. Agriculture, too, was modified to suit the requirements of the imperialist countries. In some colonies, only one or two crops were grown. For example, Cuba was reduced to only a sugar-producing country. In India, too, only cash crops, which fetched a high price in the market, were encouraged. India suffered the evils of British imperialism for many centuries.
And that's a wrap on the period of transition.
Crazy how one period of change shaped the world we live in today, right? If you found this helpful, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome history breakdowns, and hit the bell so you never miss a chapter. Drop a comment if you have any questions or want to suggest the next topic. This is Optimist Akshu signing off. Stay curious, stay optimistic, and keep making history cool. Peace out.